What's up, everyone? I hope it's Friday. This is definitely Invisible Walls, episode 104. Definitely apologize for getting the show out late. I know for a lot of you folks in Europe, it's been really late. Even some of the people on the East Coast, I think it's maybe getting a little late.
We lost power, so...
Yeah, things beyond our control. We apologize, guys. Hopefully this one goes up a little earlier. We do have a great show to try to make it up to you guys. We have a guest on the show today. I'm not going to spoil right away. We have a crew of people coming back from Capcom's event in Hawaii. Lucky bitches. Although you still haven't got any sun, Bloodworth. What's up? You're still as pale as I am.
Hey, that's what they do. They take you out to an exclusive location and have you in a dark room playing video games. So.
And on the show to do it today is, as always, Ryan Stevens.
I'm glad to be here.
Mike Damiani.
Hello.
Patrick Morales.
Good day to you, internets.
And as you all heard already, the very pale, very tall Daniel Bloodworth.
Aloha.
All right, so aloha to you too, Bloodworth. If you can't tell, I'm a little jealous you got to go on the trip to Hawaii, but you were working while you were there, right?
Yeah, most of the time. It's pretty slow paced, so it gave a lot of focus on each game.
Now, obviously, the biggest game to come out of the event, Marvel vs. Capcom 3, 10 years in the making.
I think it looks really good. I mean, some of the guys here, the more the artists and the comic book guys are splitting hairs and really picking apart the models and stuff like that. They don't like how beefed up Wolverine looks and all that. But,
yeah, I think Jeremy Hoffman said that Wolverine has tits.
Yeah, he would know.
But the thing I like about it is just the shading. You know, the shaders really make it look to me like it's been inked like a comic book.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, the kind of line shading stuff. That's really cool. I don't think I've seen that done before. And
now, did you see the game live being played?
No, it was the same trailer.
So could it be
almost
just
the same
like
trailer.
Street Fighter 4 where we saw this really cool ink stuff and then that ultimately never was incorporated fully into the game?
Because, I mean, they've said, time and time again that this is the in-game model. And at the end of the trailer, you see, Ryu doing the Hadouken. And you can see that, like, okay, it's not quite as sharp as it is in the trailer because obviously they handed that off to a post house to do. But, it's the same effects.
Yeah,
it's the same models.
Yeah, we're not exactly sure right now if what we see in the trailer is actual gameplay. But something interesting that Capcom did note was that the key art assets that have been floating around the internet are supposedly what the game actually looks like.
Yeah, those are the models.
Yeah, so
and that brings us back to the trailer I saw was unedited. The trailer that actually went out to the internet was edited by the ESRB because apparently Morrigan was showing too much cleavage. So they basically just kind of closed the gap there. On the
Why? Because it's they want it to be a T-rated game?
I don't think it's changing the game content. It's just because it's a trailer that, they have different guidelines for.
Oh, the ESRB.
Our good pals.
Yeah.
So what about the game itself? Are they changing any of the gameplay mechanics?
They're saying actually some of the stuff I didn't even pick up on until the fact sheet. They weren't talking that much detail there, but yeah, they are talking about 3-on-3 tag. They're saying the fighting system's going to be kind of between 2 and Tatsunoko versus Capcom, and they say they're focusing a lot on balance this time around. Because I mean, you can probably affirm this. I think the reputation is that there's like 56 characters in Marvel vs. Capcom 2 and like 8 that are balanced or less.
it's kind of a weird balance because if you kind of break apart each character in Marvel, they're disgustingly overpowered. But when you combine them into like all these teams, they're like strangely balanced against each other. So it's kind of a weird mix, but definitely a little bit flawed. Yeah.
What about the fighter roster?
I want Phoenix Wright.
Yeah, we were trying to spot guys in the silhouettes, and people have already pointed out people like Felicia and Deadpool and Dante. A lot of sure bets in there.
What's going to be the final number as far as fighters? Have they said yet?
They're working on getting 30 in there, and I think it's just a matter of time constraints. If they can do more, they're going to throw in more.
Bit of a disappointment considering how many were in the last one.
How many were actually in the last one?
56, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, as Patrick pointed out to me,
That's half of what the last game had.
Most of those were because they could reuse sprites.
Yeah.
Right.
And wow, that's a good point. And weren't some of them kind of jokey characters too? Like I may be remembering wrong, but like Servbot or Roll and stuff.
They had a bunch of random throwaways, like Amingo, which is like an anthropomorphic cactus guy.
Yeah.
And like Ruby Heart, which is like a pirate. Those guys they completely made up. Something that seems kind of weird to me is that they are also taking an interest in fleshing out the story a little more, right?
Yeah, they're saying that everyone's going to have really unique storylines.
Oh, they must have seen
More than most
Mortal
Marvel
Kombat versus DC and took a cue from there.
That's hilarious.
When you talk to them about how they were going about choosing the characters, what was it that they said? They said they were looking for
Something special that would cool things that they could show off, right? And then you have Chris Redfield. I'm like, what's Chris Redfield going to do?
Shoot you in the face.
How does that work?
Hey man,
I'll
he
show you what's
punches
special.
boulders. Okay, that's cool.
So Patrick, you're obviously one of the fighting game aficionados on staff. What are your overall impressions of it so far?
You know what? I was really looking forward to Marvel 3 being a 2D game just because I love sprites, but I can't say I was totally disappointed with it. I mean, I'm definitely hyped for it. 10 years of hype and, fans' requests is certainly, no small thing. And I can't wait to see more. And the big rumor is that E3, you will be able to play it, supposedly. So we'll see more or towards then.
Let's go around the horn and everybody give us one character that you hope to see in the game. Ryan.
I'd love Kitty Pryde. I don't know how she'd work because she can walk through people, which probably wouldn't work too well in a fighting game. But I'd like to see them get her in there with maybe Lockheed, her little pet dragon. Maybe I'm a 12-year-old girl. I don't know.
Damiani.
They already threw Dante. Well, supposedly Dante's in there from what we deduced. I was really hoping he would be in there. I'd like to see maybe a different version of from the Capcom side, a different version of Zero. I know they threw him into TVC.
Morales.
Maybe a little bit too obscure, but I'd love to see Jean from God Hand in there. That'd be kind of an interesting Capcom pick.
I think for me, probably Nightcrawler. A lot of fast moves and teleports and stuff like that.
I think for me, it would be Beautiful Joe. Just to see if they could work in the time manipulation stuff in there somehow in his character. I don't know how they'd ever balance that stuff, but I think it'd be really cool. So what about the rest of the games? Obviously,
they did announce and show off the first trailer for Bionic Commando Rearm 2. That was the other new game, which, Rich Brown got all excited about. And
it's from the X-Grin guys, too. So it seems
Fat Shark,
Yeah.
I guess, yeah.
a lot of the same guys working on it.
And
so
you
that's
can
cool.
jump.
Yeah. Mind blown.
Great trailer.
And then announcing for the first time that they're coming to the U.S., they had Sengoku Basara Samurai Heroes, which is a PS3 and Wii title. Okamiden, which I got to play there and plays really well. Everyone said Okami would be perfect fit for the DS, and it is. And that's
Did
coming
they
out next
sacrifice
year.
anything in scale, putting it on the DS?
It's not as wide open of a game. You don't have these huge open fields to go through. But it plays really well. They've adjusted the camera system, so because you don't have an analog stick to direct a camera, it's just really smart and follows and kind of guides you where you're supposed to go. They also showed off Dead Rising 2 co-op for the first time, which Johnny was pretty addicted to. And in there, they also showed some new weapons and items. Like you can get a helicopter, like a toy helicopter, and put it out, and the flashing lights and stuff will attract a bunch of zombies. And then so the other guy can use a flamethrower, or you can actually attach a machete to one of the helicopter blades and just start whacking off all their heads. They showed all the online modes for Super Street Fighter 4, the tournament DLC there, which comes out on June 15th. That's a free download. And it's going to allow Capcom and us to do some really cool stuff with tournaments, hold official tournaments and stuff. Somebody can just be a host, and all the people jump in. There's 8 players, and then you can set up additional brackets and things.
And speaking of us and Capcom doing cool stuff with Super Street Fighter 4, Patrick.
Oh, yes, that reminds me. On April 26th, we will be having a very special edition of Hour 1 for Super Street Fighter 4. And we have Justin Wong, actually, world-famous tournament player, on hand.
North American champ, right? Street Fighter 4.
He's a North American champ, tournament legend. He's playing an hour of Street Fighter 4 just for us and just for you. And he'll be in chat at 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time for you to ask questions, tips, advice. And he'll be back again for a second round at 6 p.m. So definitely check that out.
Asking him questions that he can supply you that nobody else can. So make sure you make the best of that.
Did you get any kind of feeling that they might be holding some stuff for E3?
They better be.
They didn't really go. I mean, yeah, everyone always says that. There's more stuff at E3, so.
All right, next we're going to talk about what Mike Damiani calls the best online experience on the Nintendo Wii, Monster Hunter Tri.
Damn right it is.
Damn right it is.
Then again, it's really good online. But quite frankly, this is what we should have been doing within the first year, honestly.
In the first week.
First week, but a year, you give a system a year.
I have no problem jumping in on Modern Warfare on the Wii and just playing with random dudes.
Then there's Mario Kart 2, which has the channel, and I can pop in there and see if anyone has ghosts that I can race against, and I can match up with people. But with Monster Hunter, it's like, okay, I get zapped into this huge world that has like a ton of sort of real estate to it. There's several different counters you go to. You go to one that takes you to another place.
But it's just a bunch of steps to confirm that no one gets left behind, because you don't want to get into a quest and someone didn't confirm, and then you're 3 people in there, and it's a 4-person quest that you need them, and you're screwed over. Like, you just wasted your time.
That's what happened to me.
there.
I went into a quest by myself.
But that's why they have so many avenues of communication. This, like the Wii Speak. I personally use the keyboard and the Wii Speak, so I can type
I
and
have
stuff.
neither.
Oh, see, you should maybe try one of those out. Just try to unhook your PC keyboard and plug it into the Wii. It works like that.
Now, right now, I have a sword that's probably 2 times the size of my
So
character.
you're a great. Then you're rolling as a Great Blade character.
And it takes forever. Once you press the button to attack, it's like 4 seconds before that sword actually comes down. I've had like enemies standing in front of me. I start the attack sequence. They run away and then run back, and then I hit them. It's like,
See,
you really have to account for the time it takes.
You
to
do,
attack.
and that's why you have to stand. We point out that you have to stand back and actually observe your enemies and figure out their habits and behaviors, because that's a slow character. If you're running in there, you're going to be missing a lot. They'll get around you and attack you, but there are other weapon types out there. The sword and shield guy is really quick and fast. Yeah. That guy instantly draws and stuff. The only thing is when he's when all this stuff's sheathed, he does kind of like a lunge attack to begin, but he's got really good mobility when he has his weapons out. But yeah, the Great Blade, you just gotta. That's what I was playing as. I know I enjoy it. Yeah, it's slow, but against those big guys who
when
are
you land
slower,
a shot, it definitely
it has a
makes an
bigger impact and
that's part of Monster Hunter's charm too, right? You have so many weapon classes to choose from that kind of, jives with your own like playing style. Like the hammer and the greatsword, those are like high risk, high reward types of weapons, or you can play a little bit more conservatively, with the sword and board. So I think that's kind of cool how it gives you that choice. You're not confined to just, having a generic weapon to slash and hack through the entire game with. Like, it gives you a choice.
Yeah, and they had the range weapon this time. They actually the gun, they made it more effective this time, because a lot of people were saying in the previous ones that it's always been like a support type thing in the quest. This time they made it good enough that you can solo with it. And so if you don't like getting in there, you don't like, figuring it. There's less like detective work you have to do. You can kind of lay back while they're just like, drinking water in a pond or something and just snipe them from afar. So, there's a good flexibility with that. So maybe try rolling as a different character and you might have more fun. I know it looks cool with the blade, but it is really slow. It is kind of annoying.
One thing that drives me bonkers about this game, and maybe about every game in this genre, is when you're like farming or you're picking like herbs. Like, why do I have to watch the guy go through the animation of getting on his knees, pulling the herbs out? Why? Just
immersion.
Give me the question mark and let me hit the X until I get all the herbs and let me go on my way.
That is slightly annoying. I also know that like in some situations, like they want it to be where it's like a dangerous
risk attached to it?
Yeah, there's a risk, so you have to take it, but there's an enemy. But here's a small little pro tip that most Monster Hunter players have. This was passed along to me as well. If you have another player with you and online, have them tap the kick button and it'll cancel your animation. So when you're picking, have them kick you. You'll get the item, and hey, they all do it. Apparently it's pretty standard. When I saw that, I was like, oh, really? That's pretty cool. But the default way, yeah, I think it's just a risk factor. They want you to like, hey, if you're picking it, you're gonna be slow. This enemy might come pick you off or something. So
yeah, maybe they should do it so if there's no enemies around, you don't have to do it. If there are enemies around, then it makes you pick them. But I've been in fields where there's no enemies at all, and I'm sitting there like going through this process of trying.
To me, Monster Hunter seems to be comprised mainly of 3 things. Like 1, the weapon classes, like trying to figure out which weapon you like. 2, trying to cook up all these strategies against all the different monsters you fight. And then 3 is like seeing your gear advance, as you harvest all these parts from the monsters. Do you think that Tri does anything to kind of break out of those central three things, or is it still kind of like the same grindy
It's
kind of
it's
gameplay?
exactly just what you said. I mean, for those who don't know, it's not an RPG in where there are levels and stuff. It's all about your gear. You want to take on more difficult monsters. You got to do that grind to get all those materials, forge your new gear, or else you can't stand up to them. It's exactly that.
Coming out with this game is the Classic Controller Pro.
Yeah,
Which I've had since it came out in Japan.
Right.
exactly.
That's all I wanted was a Black Controller Pro.
Is the cord longer on this one? Because this one was really short when I saw it. Yeah.
It's still pretty short. I mean, it's basically
No.
it's the same length actually.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, it's basically a PlayStation controller without a rumble.
Exactly.
But it's got the handles that you had on the GameCube controller, so it's a little more ergonomic, I guess.
Yeah, it just rearranges what the old one did. Now, honestly, I played it with the original Classic controller. It might feel better in your hands to hold the Classic Pro, but honestly, those extra buttons on the shoulders don't do anything.
They don't use them.
Try. They don't do
program.
anything.
That has been my
So-
biggest complaint because I love the way those buttons feel in my hand.
Yeah.
But because they're retardedly placed on the original Classic controller, nothing uses them.
When you shine, you know how I feel. Said I'll climb, you know how I feel.
All right, so once again, we have a guest in-house on Invisible Walls. Today we have Brandon Chung, ex-pandemic, working on some really cool stuff now. First, everybody wants the dirt on the demise of Pandemic. I think all of us in the entire industry was kind of rooting for you guys. I think everyone was kind of upset about it, how everything shook down. Can you give us a real story?
Sure.
Or can you?
Well, I mean, I think it was just, circumstances, and we had some games that didn't sell as much as we'd like they would. And, unfortunately, things just didn't turn out well.
Were you guys surprised when it happened?
Yeah, I mean, we felt that something might be happening because you could kind of feel something was going to happen, but I don't think anyone was expecting the entire studio was going to be just disappear off the face of the planet.
Now, what have you been doing since?
Yeah, so I've been working on a few indie games. I decided to just start my little one-man effort and just making games on my own. And I've made a game called Flotilla, and I'm working on another game right now. And prior to that, I made a little game called Gravity Bone for the Quake 2 engine.
Now, what has it been like sort of shifting from this huge corporate-owned developer to doing things on your own?
Well, it's very different. I mean, you don't have an army of artists and programmers and QA people that are like you work with every day. Now it's kind of you have to wear every single hat at the same time, and you got to do marketing and business stuff and all this paperwork. But
Yeah,
I mean,
now,
it's-
what role did you have there at Pandemic before this?
oh yeah, Pandemic. I was kind of I did a lot of level design and a lot of systems design for multiplayer and cameras and things like that.
And you were a Quake modder, like originally, right?
Yeah, prior to Pandemic. That's part of what got me hired at Pandemic was my little portfolio of little mods and stuff for Quake and Half-Life, things like that.
So you've kind of done the full wave of, enthusiast to commercial designer to indie developer.
Right. So I've gone from mods to AAA studio, and I'm going back to my little one-man studio thing.
Now, if you hadn't worked at Pandemic for a spell of time, do you think you'd be able to do what you're doing now?
No, I don't think so. I mean, you work in that environment full of such creative people. They're so smart at what they do. And you just pure osmosis, you just learn all this stuff about art and programming and marketing and producing, things like that.
What would you say the indie landscape is like right now? Is there a lot of opportunity out there? Do you have to really hustle to make it happen?
Games as a form of media is just so young right now. There's so much unexplored territory. It kind of feels like when cinema was first starting. It's just a camera sitting in front of a train and you see the train passing by. And I kind of think that's where we are right now. And I think there's so much room for people to do new stuff, to experiment with new genres. I mean, just in the past 10 years, we've seen like the birth of so much new genres. Open world GTA games. You got the music games. You got all, so much new things to come, I think.
Now with Flotilla, you are charging money, and like when Gravity Bone came out, you were employed at Pandemic. You released Gravity Bone, all the blogs go crazy. It's free, everyone's downloading it. How posting funny videos and stuff like that. And now we have Flotilla, which is also very interesting because you did get it on the Xbox in a roundabout way. Was it at what point was it a conscious decision to start charging for something?
The moment I stopped getting paychecks from Pandemic.
I knew what that answer was going to be.
Gonna set that one off.
I need to put food in my mouth.
Yeah.
But yeah, I decided to, start my own little thing. I kind of had a decision: should I go for the AAA studios again and keep on doing side stuff as I was at Pandemic? But I decided, might as well start now. This is something I've wanted to do for a long time, and might as well just start, give it a shot, see what happens.
Can you talk about maybe getting it on Xbox indie games and kind of how was that like a simple thing? I mean, we see a lot of Xbox indie games, but a lot of them just have avatars in them or they're vibrating your controller. I think it's always like the best selling. I mean, when the dishwasher was first announced, it was awesome, but then that became, a published Xbox Live Arcade game.
Right.
So it's a much more of a niche scene, but what do you feel about the Xbox Live indie game scene, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like the YouTube of video games. Anyone with XNA account can make a game and post it up there and get it through the approval process. That's done through other developers. There is no giant overhead overseer of the entire process. And so, I mean, it allows anyone to get on there. So that's kind of why we see so much, non-game stuff. Just people can make it in a couple of weeks.
I think the best-selling game right now is like Baby Maker or something like that.
As it should be.
Yes.
Now, what part of game development that you experienced at Pandemic that while you were working there, you're like, oh, they don't do anything, or that's easy, and now that you have to do it yourself, you're like, oh, snap, that's not what I thought it was?
You know what? I think I don't think there was anything easy about the process. Pretty much every step of the entire development process just takes so much work. No, I take that back, actually. The one thing I thought that wouldn't be so hard was, thinking up of getting the game out there, and actually has taken a fair amount of work to get people noticing your stuff.
What's next for you? Bring more people on to work with you?
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to. It's kind of a lot of work for one person.
I bet.
I'm not living in a box yet, and Flotilla's sold enough to pay my rent for a while. So,
Congrats.
yeah,
Congratulations.
it's very cool.
Yeah.
I'm very excited.
And I've played a little Flotilla, and I played Gravity Bone back in the day, and I just want to say you're kind of a weird dude. You seem very normal here, but when I was playing Gravity Bone in particular, I mean Flotilla is a very tongue in cheek, but Gravity Bone you made while you were working probably 80 hours a week at Pandemic, so I mean you must really like games and you're making really cool stuff, and just hope you keep doing it. Can we expect to see anything more on the weird side from you?
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to continue with the Gravity Bone stuff sometime down the road.
Awesome.
It's
You heard
definitely
it here first.
Any message for our viewers that may be looking into making their own games? Any advice you can give them?
Yeah, I mean, one thing that helped me was to just not think about how good your game is going to be. Just make something and get it out there, and you will fail many times, like I have. But eventually, you start failing less.
Well, Brandon, thank you so much for stopping by. Really appreciate you taking the time out of your schedule. Obviously, you probably don't have a lot of free time if you're doing this all on your own. So congratulations on your success so far, and we can't wait to see what you do in the future.
Great. Thank you all very much.
Zeus! Your son has returned.
Next, we're going to talk about the NPD report. All I can say is, Kratos, you've made lots of money.
Is that the Ghost of Marcus?
That's the Ghost of
Dun.
Sparta. He made a shit ton of money, in fact. I mean, definitely the top-selling game of the month. Deservedly so. Definitely.
Unless you combine the Pokemons.
Yeah, we're not going to do that, though. Let's give
I
Kratos
just like
his
how
due.
much difference is between the two Pokemon games.
Yeah, right.
Oh,
That's
Yeah,
kind of
that's
funny.
you don't know anything about the love-hate between Heart Gold and Soul Silver?
You started to tell me about this, and then I think I just
Dude.
tuned it out because it was.
I'm on the Soul Silver team.
When we posted our review, dude, and then when MPD came out, commenters were like, "Confirmed, Soul Silver is the greater one." Because I don't know how they hate the different versions
It's
because
just a
of the
cover monster, right?
No, there's about like 15. There's actually 15 different Pokemon you can capture in each one.
Right.
But then you can trade for them and stuff. So they're still the same damn game. But
Yeah.
fans are so loyal. But yeah, it's
Hundreds
just funny
of
to
thousands
see.
of differences in loyalty. It's nuts.
Final Fantasy 13, biggest launch for Final Fantasy ever. Got a
And
press release from
loyal.
Square.
Loyalty to the PS3.
And I have been playing that game. And
Which version?
Oh yeah, it's almost twice. on
I've
the
been
PS3,
playing the PlayStation 3 version, and I almost quit after the first 45 minutes of that
wow.
game. I could not stand it. Dude, the
Final Quarters.
dialogue is so inane. Who could watch the first hour? My wife was sitting in the back bedroom on the computer, could not see the game. All she could do is hear the dialogue, laughing her ass off. She's like, here's what she said. She goes, "That's the worst game you've ever played." Which also shows she doesn't know anything what she's talking about.
That's the
but-
box quote, huh?
That is
but, but it's funny how she looks at games differently than we do, and she's just like, that dialogue is so horrible. And she sat back there laughing out loud at it as I sat in the living room laughing out loud. I will say after the first couple hours and it actually gets into the story a little bit, it does get better. But oh my God, all the rah-rah bullshit in that game. Yeah, team, go.
Now you
I'm like,
see-
no, I don't want to go with you jerks. Like,
Now you see why I played it in Japanese, right?
I totally understand it. And again, it did get better after a while, and I have stuck with it, and I'm continuing to play it almost because I feel like I need to because of my job. But wow, holy cow! Like Square needs to listen to their American team a little more. I think it's just they don't get the culture and how people interact with each other. Nobody says that crap. Anyway, total tangent we got off on there. Battlefield Bad Company 2 did pretty freaking well. Came in at 4th and 8th, which I think is probably, I think it was, double the debut of the first one. I saw the press release from EA. So they're really happy with that. It did a lot better than the first game did, despite some pretty stiff competition. There's new Super Mario Brothers Wii, once again.
Yeah.
It's the new Wii Play.
Still.
Why are they releasing Galaxy 2?
No, they don't need to, do they? And usually
Oh, they do.
Yeah, well, yeah, for us they do. Typically, Nintendo would sit on a game like that, though, and milk the first game as much as possible. So we have to give some props to Nintendo for going forward with their release date for that game. Wii Fit Plus, please. Please. Who doesn't have that yet? It's like the DS. Who doesn't have one?
I don't.
Yeah,
well,
I don't wanna
it's not
buy
even just that. It's like, how are people still finding this as a viable fitness option?
It doesn't work.
It's like just get a book and that has all the different exercises in it and just.
And hardware, which is always what the fanboys love to talk about, but that war's been signed, sealed, and delivered for quite some time at this point. It looks like the Wii got back in stock, apparently. Over 500,000 sales in 1 month for March. That's pretty impressive.
Mike, did you get the numbers on the XL? What were they saying?
Oh, you mean the?
240,000?
Oh, you're talking about the DS?
Yeah.
Oh no, it was only 141,000.
140,000.
But
okay.
and which is what are they saying? That compared to the DS's first month, the DS Lite had like almost 900,000.
Right.
So that 3DS announcement probably had a little bit of an impact on the XL sales, though DS still had a gigantic month.
Either that or that's the total number of geriatric gamers in the United States.
Maybe their ad didn't run in the AARP magazine like they were expecting.
Yeah. I mean, so the 360 quote unquote won that month over the PlayStation 3, but I think at this point those two
No,
platforms
that's dead even pretty much.
Yeah. I think that's pretty much what it is at this point. Those two platforms are just neck and neck, and I think that's probably the way it's going to go. I don't know if one game or one thing is going to push it one way or the other. If there is something, it would probably be either Natal or Move. But even then, I don't really see either one of these platforms getting a huge bump from that over the other one.
I mean, God of War is out now, and Sony just released like a gazillion greatest hits games.
Yeah.
Like this month, I think they're hitting.
I keep hearing from people in the office just getting PS3s, wanting to borrow games from the library and
And
stuff.
there's like
Which is weird, though,
Killzone
because
2 is like $30 now or something.
it doesn't look like God of War 3 gave the hardware that much of a bump. While we have anecdotal evidence around the office, we know a few people that bought them for the game specifically. It doesn't look like overall it's really made a big difference for Sony.
And I don't think people were holding out for Final Fantasy 13 either. Like, I'm not going to buy a PS3 until it comes out.
Yeah, well, 800,000 units of. I mean, the
No, but I'm
PS3
looking
had a
at the-
good month.
Oh yeah, I mean
for
number 10, a
software
sports
sales.
game.
Yeah, I mean, MLB The Show.
Totally deserved, by the way. Great sports game. But overall, this is probably the best month for software ever for the PS3 as far as the top 10 on the NPD. And that's where they're
Still
making all their
selling.
money. So congratulations to Sony on a great March. Your hardware didn't go maybe as high as you hoped, but your software did really well.
Well,
Yeah,
at least the
the
PSP,
PSP.
at least it beat the PS2
Yeah,
by
PSP
thousands.
Sailors?
All right, so we put up a top 10 list recently. I think it was one of our better ones, in all honesty. We went back and looked through old franchises that desperately need a sequel. It was a pretty spirited discussion. Obviously, number one was Shenmue. I don't think anybody's going to have any debate with that, considering the way Shenmue 2 left off. I think that was a pretty obvious pick at number one. Some
How
of
many
our
games was that originally supposed to be again? Like
It
seven?
was,
Seven,
It,
I
it was
thought it was.
chapters, though, wasn't it?
Right, because Shenmue 2 had 2 of the chapters, right?
right.
I had like 5, didn't it? It like skipped chapter. Shenmue 1 was one chapter, and Shenmue 2 was chapters like 4. It skipped some. It was like 4 to 6 or something like that. It was
Okay.
really weird. It's like how Star Wars starts with Episode 4 and crap like that. You know?
I think it'll also never happen. I mean, they lost so much money on this franchise.
Oh yeah.
Well, the funny thing is that they,
But
know,
now
they
they have them in
could
Sega
use the
Racing.
Yakuza engine and just do it. I mean, all of that stuff. A lot
Well,
of the
you say
assets are
just
there.
do it, but just doing it's still 2 or 3 years of work. I mean, Yu
Yeah.
Suzuki already cost the company.
Well, they make a Yakuza game like every year now.
And those sell well in Japan.
Yeah.
They sell really well.
Yeah, I think the expectations for Yakuza versus Shenmue 3 are a little different, though. But I don't think we'll ever see it. I mean, it tanked so hard. I ended up when Sega got out of the console business. I was working at GameSpot at the time, and we were the floor below them. And they basically just emailed us and was like, "Yo, guys, you want to come upstairs and buy some shit?" We were like, "All right." So we go upstairs. It was the saddest thing I've ever seen, still to this day in this industry, was watching Sega's fire sale. I mean, literally, I got Shenmue 2 for like $3. Every Dreamcast game was $1 or $2. Dreamcast controllers were like $1. I mean, it was just this fire sale of Dreamcast stuff. It was so sad, but I think that was the day I realized that we'd probably never, ever see Shenmue 3, unfortunately.
Dreamcast 2. You gotta believe. What do you think, special guest Brandon Jones?
Yeah.
Greetings.
Brandon is on the show today.
Well, actually, there were a lot of games on this list that I got gameplay for the countdown, but I never played Shenmue. I never played Panzer Dragoon Saga. And so a lot of this stuff, I never beat Strider. That was nice. It was nice to go back and actually finish the first game. I never actually finished that stuff. But yeah, Shenmue's lost on me. I didn't at least get to the end of Shenmue 2, but I guess it's kind of like the end of Halo 2. You know, it's just like, oh, well, so clear what 3 is going to be. It just never happened.
Now, that's interesting that you hadn't played some of these games. So since you have this fresh perspective, we have a little nostalgia perhaps clouding our judgment. What are the games that you went back and played again where you like, are these guys crazy for putting this on the list? Was there any?
No, not particularly that I can think
What'd
of.
you
I
think
know
of
that's not a very
Shenmue, having
exciting
never
answer,
played
but,
it?
Yeah, I couldn't see myself going through that game. I think my favorite thing, just from a raw technical perspective, was that there's so many people walking around that you can't see them. There's so many times I'd be going down the street and I'd be like, why am I not? And then like, oh, there's a guy on a bike in front of me. Who
Yeah.
didn't load
Guy in a Santa
for
Claus
10
outfit.
seconds until after like. So I think that was the initial because it's some of these games hold up even though you go back and you think like, oh, okay, I gotta like Skies of Arcadia, like I gotta get ready for these load times. You know, it's like every time you get a random battle, it's like there's the environment and then there's me and then there's who I'm fighting. But yeah, Shenmue, I don't think I could overcome that hurdle.
Yeah, I think they would have to change that game drastically at this point to make it relevant as well. I don't think they could just make a straight up sequel and people would still enjoy it. I think
Maybe like a Bejeweled clone or something.
It's just rare that you have games that are so heavily story based with that many characters that just never finished.
Now, what did you think of Panzer Dragoon Saga? That is sort of the game in the industry that's held up on a mantle. It's one of the most expensive games you can buy used. We paid, what, $200 for the copy. What do you think of it?
I think it's cool.
It's pretty awesome.
Yeah, it's really fun.
Ugly as sin right now, though, right?
Oh yeah, but
It's ugly as sin.
it really shows how much playtime as far as like speed, loading times, like in role playing games, and just play control. Just controls really well. Everything's very fast. Like the fights are really quick to get in and out of. You're constantly moving forward. It's like you can branch out and explore a little bit, but it's still linear. Like you're never confused of where you need to go.
It does the good balance of getting you with like the kind of on-foot exploration, like an intriguing story. It's so dark. I mean, even Panzer Dragoon Orta was really like just kind of depressing. And then the whole like air combat is really like Was it interesting going from Skies of Arcadia to Panzer Dragoon? Because there's some crossover there.
A little bit, yeah. But like, good point is when I first got into a ship in Skies of Arcadia, I took off in the wrong direction and was going, I'm like, wait, I should need to turn around because there's no map, there's nothing pointing you in the right direction. Whereas like Panzer's very streamlined. They did a really smart.
And it's a much
job
older
designing
game than Skies.
It was also interesting too because I was a big original Panzer Dragoon fan, so I thought like getting into this would be like, I just want to play the old version. But it's a very interesting game. I'd love to see that battle mechanic, like shifting sides.
Now, if
during
you
battle.
had paid the $200 out of your own pocket to play it on your own Saturn, would it be worth the money?
Well, I'd have to buy my own Saturn.
Well, you
along
can
with
get that
$200
for about
to buy the initial
$10.
game, yeah.
There's a lot of people out there that are. I mean, this game has a lot of mystery behind it. It's hard to find, and it costs a lot to buy. Do you think it's worth it to somebody who would be interested in purchasing it?
It's so tough from my perspective because I have so little time to actually play games recreationally. So I don't know if I would. Put that much time into it.
It's a great game.
I've never played an RPG like it, and like I said, for the time period, for
$200.
the early beginnings of 3D role playing, it is a very fast-paced game.
You
I
can put it
was
in a safety
surprised how
deposit
much
box and
progress I
wait.
made.
And watch his value go down.
No, well, the Saturn is still really, really hard to emulate. So I know a bunch of people who had Rondo of Blood, are kicking themselves in the butt with the Virtual Console release. I guess the eBay prices have dropped dramatically, but I don't know, man. Saturn emulation. I know some of those games got PC ports, and the GameTap had a couple of them, but I don't know, man. Panzer Dragoon Saga, probably not going to be the easiest game to play.
I thought Killer Instinct on this one list is the one that when I've been talking to friends about this, I'm like, I got this great countdown coming up. A lot of them are like, Killer Instinct, really?
Ultima got a web game release this week.
Yeah, I saw that.
That's kind of horrible.
The name's still alive.
And Star Fox, we've heard some twittering and twattering.
Yeah,
about
Kami has
that.
Twittered.
guy
I hope
from Platinum.
Nintendo comes and holds a gun to my head to make the sequel.
What the heck would that game look like?
I have no idea.
Like,
I think we got some
Maybe
some
some
footage
giant
that will run.
dragons.
yeah,
flying around.
we have a
Here's Star
leak-
Fox 4
a leak
right here.
screenshot.
Yeah, I think we have some exclusive footage actually of the early pre-alpha build.
Wow, that was great.
That was great, yeah. Yeah, Conquer. I think Conquer is the one thing on this list that still makes total sense because it was all built around pop culture references. So, I mean, so much stuff has happened since the last game. There's just loads and loads of material for the game. But again, I would hope that they would make a true sequel to the game and not make some weird little kid snap together toy thing like they did with Banjo.
Also, I remember the multiplayer modes from the first Conquer. I think were my favorite.
They were awesome,
There were
yeah.
really some clever, like clearly one-sided multiplayer modes that were just out there for fun. So it'd be fun to see that. With
Kid
updated
Icarus,
graphics.
that kind of spills out of the whole...
That was my number one. That was my fave. I was really glad to see that get on the list. Just
kind of
because-
spills out of the whole Dead Phoenix Capcom 5 rigmarole that everyone went through back in the GameCube era, where we saw that game and it looked like a Kid Icarus game already when they first showed it, and then it just kind of went away, and there were rumors, blah, blah, blah. Honestly, if you go back and play the old Kid Icarus games, they're not that fun.
No, but it just seeing
In
how
fact, they're infuriating.
But seeing how these other franchises have embraced that, like the one thing that I think, they're the two big flagship 3D, Zelda and Mario don't really have a lot of projectile combat.
Yeah.
And so that would be fun, like jumping and flying and shooting stuff with lock on. And like, I think that there's a lot of potential there.
All right, that's going to do it for episode 104. Do not forget, next Monday, Hour 1 with Super Street Fighter 4. Justin Wong, North American Street Fighter 4 champion, will be there to give you tips and tricks and strategies. So make sure you check it out at 3 o'clock Pacific and 6 o'clock Pacific. We do 2 airings of it. Make sure you're there. Patrick will also be on there to answer questions, our GT editorial staffer. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. We'll see you next week. Invisible Walls is up and out.